Here we are with the all new latest generation Mercedes Benz E-Class, and it is by far the most advanced E-Class we've had to date. The looks, well, it's a new design. It's similar in ways to the larger S-Class, especially when you see around the back. We'll get to that in a moment, but let's start at the front, because the one thing that may polarize opinions is this new grille design. You get two different versions based on what your equipment level is or your specification grade. This is the more modern feature, so you get the single bar going across. You can get a more traditional Mercedes design grille that includes the three-pointed star emblem on the bonnet, but most people are probably going to go with this more modern design. What is likely to upset some people is this black surround. This is on all of the different versions you have, and part of this is the reasoning for it is to join the headlights and the grille, and it serves as a bit of a link between the normal Mercedes-Benz combustion models and its EQ electric models. And when you keep that in mind, you'll start to see exactly why they've done it that way. The new headlights have a rather curvy look to them, and you get this split daytime running light signature with the kind of eyebrow on top. You can obviously get its latest matrix style LED headlights as well that have more than 1 million pixels per headlight. That gives you a really detailed view of the road and can dynamically block out various vehicles and other objects as you're driving along. The overall car is only 1 centimeter longer than its predecessor, although the wheelbase is 2 centimeters longer to give a tiny bit more passenger room. You've got various different wheel sizes available. This is the 20-inch wheel. It's the biggest size wheel you can get on the plug-in hybrids, but they do offer up to 21-inch wheels on the E-Class. You have the new pop-out style door handles. This is a standard feature on all of them. So when you come up to the car and you have your key or even your digital key on your phone, you can just put your finger along and then pop open. And what I do like about these is the action of the door is very, very good. Opening and closing it, good, proper, solid thud. That's what you want in a car like this. And it's the same on the rear. With the AMG Line models, you can have this window surround in a high gloss black. That also includes the lower section on the bottom of the sills. On the more traditional models, you can get that with a chrome finish. And again, there's a whole load of different wheel options available. Charging, this is the plug-in hybrid version. You have up to around about 100 kilometers, depending on which plug-in hybrid you have, but in and around they all do around about 100 kilometers on purely electric driving. 11 kilowatt charging on AC as standard, up to 55 kilowatt on DC charging, which means you can recharge this plug-in hybrid very, very quickly, which is good news if you're on the move and you want to maximize having your battery fully charged at all times. Then around the back, you've got this new tail light design. This is really where the similarities between the E-Class and the larger S-Class become more apparent when you get around the back. It's the first car to have this new triangular tail light design with the Mercedes emblem on either side. Personally, I'm not totally enamored with this. I think it's a little bit kind of cheesy, but it is going to be on all of the E-Classes as well. Is what you're going to see across all the different models. Then in the boot, well, it's a better size boot than before. It's also a better shape boot than before. The plug-in hybrid now loses that big awkward step that was in it before. Boot space isn't quite as much as the non-plug-in hybrid, but it is now, thankfully, a much more usable boot space. So that is good news. On the interior is where people are going to be super impressed with this new E-Class. It's a fully digital experience, and depending on what spec you want, you can have this Superscreen inside here, which basically gives you this massive central screen and then a second touchscreen in front of the passenger. I'll come back to that in a moment because there's some kind of interesting features with that. But first of all, driving position is great. You have tons of adjustment here. You can adjust it on the door. Steering wheel is also fully adjustable electrically as well if you want it. So that's great. Very easy to find a comfortable position. You have a couple of different instrument displays depending on your specification grade. This particular one has this three-dimensional view. So as I turn my head, I can see a little bit of movement in the screen. It's pretty interesting. There are a couple of tiny bits in it when it gets a little bit fuzzy as it's crossing over, but it's something new. It also features, when you have this, a stereo camera that looks back at me, watches my face, and that's linked into the driver monitoring system that you have. The rest of the layout is quite simple and familiar if you've been in any modern Mercedes. You've just got the two column stalks, your drive selector, reverse, everything is on the right side, and all your lights and wipers and indicators are on the left hand side. This particular one has the twin spar design on the multifunction steering wheel, and you've also got some nice feeling paddles on the back. The material quality is top notch here. Mercedes has been doing a great job on its interiors, and one thing it's really improved, and I am very, very grateful for, is that they've made this open pore wood the standard material on its cars. No more easily scratched glossy piano black material. You can have it if you want, but it's now an option. This is what you're going to get as standard, and it's so much nicer. So well done, Mercedes, for giving us that. The main screen then, well, it's very impressive. It's huge. It fills the whole space here. It's very easy to reach and use. You've got a whole multitude of different controls and features that you can have, including various apps. Obviously, there's a whole range of voice control as well, so you can summon that by just mentioning the car's name. It also learns routines, so it knows if you're always driving a set route on Monday to Friday and you always have a certain radio station on or a certain cabin temperature, it begins to learn your habits and will automatically do things for you. So that's quite a nice feature too. There are some other kind of slightly gimmicky features, maybe some people might think. You've got a selfie camera here on top of the dashboard that you can have. The whole point of this is, yes, you can take selfies, but you can also use this as a video conferencing setup. So if you've got Zoom or WebEx and you want to log into a call, you can do this via the car when you're stationary. Not everyone's going to want to do it, but some people might want to have that function. It is now there. And then you have this extra screen, part of this kind of Superscreen setup. This is basically a second screen for when somebody sits in the passenger seat. That becomes live. They can then interact with their own version of the menu system, the infotainment system. That includes a web browser, so they can go on YouTube, you can stream your music, you can do whatever you want to do on that, but that can be controlled separately via even Bluetooth headphones. So I can be driving along listening to my normal radio station, your partner, your kids, whoever can be sitting there watching a movie, except I can't see it. So what the screen does is it watches my face through these stereo cameras, or alternatively another camera mounted here, depending on which specification grade you have. If that detects that I'm starting to look at that screen, it dims it. I cannot see it. And we've tried this while I've been out driving already, and my colleague was sitting there watching something, and as I look over, the screen is completely black when it is playing any media. So it's very clever. It's good to have that lack of distraction there for the driver. It's a part of the whole tech that's inside this car, and there's so much tech. Other features I'll talk about when we get out driving, including automated lane keep, automated lane changing. Apart from that, the overall design, you've got ambient lighting running through here. The vents all run across the top of the screen and down. It all looks very aesthetically pretty. It's very nice. There's a few kind of physical buttons here for what you need, but everything generally is going to be touch sensitive. The only real physical buttons you'll have are like for your seats and for your windows. Practicalities, well, you've got some extra storage under here. You can open this up and you've got a wireless charger in there, 2 cup holders, 2 more USB-C ports, and you also have a decent sized glove box there as well. Everything feels really well made in here though, and that's the one thing people are going to really like about this new E-Class. Now let's have a look at the back seats. Rear passengers will have very little to complain about sitting in the back of the new E-Class. There is a ton of headroom and legroom in here. For reference, I'm about 5'8" and I'm sitting behind my normal driving position, and you can just see how much space I have here. I have tons of space. I can just about touch the seat in front of me. I've got a lot of shoulder room in here as well. Headroom, I've got plenty of that too, and you've also got this split glass roof in here as well. So there's plenty of light flooding in here. Okay, middle seat passenger, they're not going to fare so well because there's a fairly chunky transmission tunnel, because obviously Mercedes still keeps its 4MATIC system in here, but the center seat is quite wide, so you know, you're not going to feel too hard done by if you are sitting here. If you're not going to have anyone there, obviously you can pop down the center armrest. You've got pop out accessories and cup holders there as well, and I can also adjust all of the cabin temperature as well through this nifty touchscreen on the back. I've got vents on the sides of the B pillars here. I've got coat hooks, handrails. I've got everything you need, including some pretty decent sized door bins too. So rear passengers, I think, are going to be very happy sitting in the back here. The petrol motor in the E300 does have plenty of power, but we did also try the lesser powered non-plug-in hybrid E200. Now that does still get mild hybrid technology, but it is exclusively a petrol power car, and that does put in a reasonable account of itself too. So if you're not necessarily looking or want to go all the way or can afford to go all the way to a plug-in hybrid, it is a pretty decent alternative as well. It's got a reasonable amount of performance there, and so long as you're not wringing the neck of that engine, it's actually fairly refined too. Of course, there are still a lot of company car drivers, for example, that will want to have the E220 diesel, and we did drive that earlier on, and while it's not bad, it does always leave you under no illusion that you're driving a diesel. Yes, it's got the legs on a motorway journey. It will cruise along comfortably at 130 kilometers an hour, barely sitting over 1500 RPM, and of course you're going to have that lengthy distance between refills. But when you start to push on that engine a little bit more, you're not going to be mistaken that you're driving a diesel. It does get a little bit noisier. It does have to work a little bit harder to get up to speed that bit quicker. This is the E300e, the plug-in hybrid variant, and much like its larger sibling, the S-Class, driving this car in its electric mode is an extremely serene and quiet experience. It also helps on these tighter corners, the fact that it has rear wheel steering, which turns the rear wheels up to 4.5 degrees in the opposite direction to the front wheels at lower speeds. What that means is it gets around these hairpin bends like you wouldn't believe. It's so easy. It feels like a car that is half the size that it is, and that's great if you're going to spend a lot of your time negotiating car parks or driving in the city or trying to park. It makes it all that bit easier. In fact, there are a whole host of different driver assistance systems that you can now have on this E-Class, including an automated lane change that's going to come hopefully to some markets in Europe later this year. It's based off the adaptive cruise control system, and we did try it on the motorway here in Austria, and it does work quite well. It's not totally the finished article just yet. The cars we were driving use the US and Canadian setup, so it is a little bit different, but it's more just a preview of what to expect. And essentially what it does is, as you're driving along, the car will decide when to overtake when it deems it's safe and suitable to do so. Most of the time it got it absolutely right, and it was very good at picking up objects coming up from behind faster moving cars, or even predicting when it's actually probably not the right idea to go and overtake. Not everyone is going to use it, but if you're a really high mileage user on the motorways, I think that's something you're going to want to try. But back to the plug-in hybrid, the electric motor now has a little bit more power than its predecessor does, and you do have that decent battery size and driving range, which I mentioned earlier in the video. In the pure electric mode, it drives along very, very nicely. It's got plenty of power, and you do have to put your foot all the way down to provoke the petrol engine into action. When you do though, it comes in quite smoothly, and it does pull fairly well. It gets this E-Class up to speed quite nicely, but equally as smoothly as it comes in, also does it fade out, and it will soon drop back into driving in the pure electric or the hybrid mode. You can choose through the driver menu exactly what mode you want to have it in as well, so you can select a hybrid, electric, or indeed your usual sort of sport functions, which will give you all of that performance at once. Another thing that is kind of surprising is how this car also adapts to its surroundings. Now, what I mean by that is that it will pick up when there is a speed limit change coming up, and it will automatically begin to slow the car right down to the appropriate speed for when you do it. And that's not just linked to the cruise control, it does it even when you're normal driving mode. So you will find the car slowing down and you might wonder, hang on, what's going on? That's what it's doing. It's always designed to keep you within the right sort of legal parameters. Other things though are just very well thought out. The whole layout works quite well. The driving position offers a ton of adjustments as well, so that's pretty good. The overall visibility outwards is good as well. You do sit relatively close to the windscreen. It's got this nice kind of shallow dashboard, which I quite like. It means, you know, you can see exactly where the nose of the car is, makes it much easier to place. And the whole layout of the dashboard itself is very attractive. It all looks and works quite well, even if it does have a selfie camera fixed on top. It's obvious Mercedes has put a huge amount of effort into this new E-Class, and yeah, without a doubt, the refinement levels are way, way up there, especially when you're going to drive this plug-in hybrid version. It's a wonderfully easy and comfortable car to drive. Distances just melt away with this thing. And honestly, if you tick enough of the right boxes, you're not going to want an S-Class. That's our first drive review of the new Mercedes Benz E-Class. I hope you found it informative and useful. If you did, please do give the video a thumbs up, but more importantly, tell us what you think about the car in the comments below, because we love getting your feedback on these things. If you want to know more about the new E-Class, head over to our website. It's CompleteCar.ie. You'll find it linked in the description below, and it's a great resource for finding your next new car. In the meantime, please do hit the subscribe button on the channel, and don't forget to hit the notification bell. Next time then, you'll know when we upload a video. Thanks for watching.